So, in this video, and I know I start every video by saying so, but that's okay. We're going to cover arrays. We'll start with an integer array. And try to explain what it all means. And what are they? Now, when I got into programming, I would pick an idea and just spend time with it until it made sense. And in the beginning, they were confusing. I even struggled with variables and trying to understand it. Because when you read in a book, it's not really user-friendly. It's not presenting it in a way to somebody who has no programming experience. It's presenting it to somebody who must have some kind of programming experience, or they're being very technical in their description. How do we go from here? So we got this idea of an array. We realized that I used to be afraid of them, and I would avoid them. We need to figure out what an array is, what makes it the way it is, and how do you interact with it. What's it good for? How does it fit in this whole scheme of programming and these tools? How does it relate? Why would we use it? And when would we know to use it? Things like that. So first, let's start with a very simple example. A box with a bunch of boxes in it. Now, I picked this just because it's humorous. They actually have one where it's moving and the cats are jumping, but that's distracting. So essentially, it's a collection of boxes. If we used, I don't know if they even have one here. If we wanted to figure out what a variable was, it's essentially just a single container. Just one thing to hold one thing. Using it another way, an array is a collection of variables. They each have what are known as identifiers or elements. It has a name. So like if we took this line of code here and we pasted it in here, just to kind of see what this is the Java representation of that thing is. And this is actually cool because it relates fairly well. So we have this part of it, which is its size or the length. We have the data type here, also here too. It's the data type of the array. We have these little indicators right here. Notice these little square brackets. They tell me that this is an array. Just like a little flag or little indicator. This is an array, is what that tells me when I see that. And then we have this thing here, which is the name of the array. So what is it? What is this array? So this is also known as a one-dimensional array, and it just means it goes in one direction. A two-dimensional array we're not going to get into, but first we kind of want to just break this apart. These are known as the elements, which represent the individual spaces or containers or locations or storage spots in memory of the array. So this would be element 0, and it's referring to the very first space in the array. You would access that by the name of the array, square brackets, and then you have a number. This number corresponds to these numbers here. So in this case, that is referring to that location, which is referring to the very first element in the array. So that's kind of what an array is. It's a collection of boxes or a collection of containers that you get to store stuff in. Really simple. You know, a variable is just a box. It has a name. Obviously, it has some data type. And it might have a value stored in it. And that's what a variable is. That's pretty easy to figure out, pretty easy to see that the simplicity of that. An array is just a collection of boxes connected beside each other. Instead of each of them having a name, the whole thing is given a name, known as its identifier. And you access individual boxes based on the number between the square brackets. The size of the array has to do with how many boxes there are. So if we were to put numbers in here, 1, and I don't care that this is sloppy. Essentially, we're just trying to convey this confusing thing, or potentially confusing thing, and make it simple. Now, if we count them up, we know there's 5. But we look down here, we realize that these numbers are off. In fact, 0's there, which is not here, and 5's not here, which it is there. Why is that? This brings up the idea of something being off by 1. Arrays start at location 0. And then you can actually go to the next one, which is location 1, location 2, location 3, location 4. This idea might be confusing at first. The more time you spend with arrays and this off by 1 idea, you'll feel that that's really comfortable thinking in terms of whatever it is. You just know that whatever number you're going to, if it's 25, the end of the array is actually 24 because it's off by 1. You'll just make that adjustment in your mind automatically. So, into the code, we access part of an array or an element of that array by the value or a number. This is referring to element 0 in the array. Let's make a for loop here. In fact, we're going to take this array and we're going to make it run, this loop run to the length of the array. So we know that it's just going to, however many elements there are, it's going to just go through each one of them. We know there's 5, so it's going to do it 5 times. So let's take this. I'm not going to get into explaining every little bit about this, but we're going to, well, we might as well. So this will just print out every element in the array. And we're going to assign some values to every element in the array. Now, remember, we're using that insert key. And this is how we do it. We use the assignment operator. It basically says take what's on the right and put it in what's on the left. This whole thing on the left is really referring to the element that's at that location, that one container, that one box. We'll put in my age for fun, end it with a semicolon. And we'll put in here, and now let's copy this kind of structure. Let's put in some ages. My sister is a year younger than me. She's 33. I'll just make up some ages. I remember Bob, we gave him the age of 30. I had a cat. It probably lived to the age of 16. And what else? So let's run this. And we get the contents. And we could even, in here, what do we have going on? Oh, because that's that. So what this does is the contents of some array at location 0 equals 34, which it does. Location 1 equals that, location 2 equals that, location 3 equals that. Notice it's not having a semicolon. We didn't put that in. We could do that. There's no real reason to. But this is showing how to assign a value to a specific element in the array. This really just, that's all that's taking place, is you're directly assigning values, or assigning direct values to, you're hard coding numbers into these different locations. Now, there's this idea referred to as traversing an array, and we actually did that with our print statement here. Let's get rid of all this extra stuff, and we'll just show. Let's get rid of that. Let's run this. Now, there's nothing in the array, and there's nothing in any of the locations. We got rid of our assignments here. We could run them again, and we get that. But we're trying to simplify this and understand this concept of traversing an array. So we have this array name, and instead of putting in a number, we put in this variable x. The reason for that is x is going to start at 0, and then it checks some Boolean condition. It says, well, x is less than the array's length, which is 5. So while x is less than 5, it's going to run this code, and then it's going to increment x. Incrementing just means take 1 and add it to whatever's already in there. So the first time it does it, it's at 0. The next time it does it, it's at 1. Next time 2, so on and so forth. So in essence, this is traversing the array. It's going through every element in the array. If we brought up our goofy little image here, that's the wrong one. What's taking place is it goes to the first one, and it goes to the next one, the next one, next one, next one. It's traversing the array. It's going through all the elements in it. Now that's cool. We can assign values to this. We can print out the contents of it. How would we do a calculation? Let's say we wanted to take this value, and this will represent our total. And that's the last element in the array. We'll set it to 0. So we have these first two. So 2 can equal it says add this array to that. In fact, here let's do this. We'll separate these out. Plus equal just means add what's on the right to this. We'll get rid of that. Well, that's set to 0, so we don't need to actually do that. So we'll take this first one plus the next one plus the next one plus the next one. So we can then say take all these, add all these together, and add them in here. And now here, we can run this. We get this, 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 and this, and then we get this new total. So if we ran that in a calculator, just for fun, 34 plus 33 plus 30 plus 16 is 113. And that's showing that essentially it's giving us the correct total. So you can do calculations with array elements, and all it's really doing is saying take the value in there. That's what, like in this case, instead of it saying this array, it's just really just saying 34 plus 33 plus 30 plus 16. That's essentially what it's really doing. But maybe we didn't know what the values were. And in fact, it's better to use this in this format because you know that the array element names aren't going to change. The values can change, and it doesn't really matter. We basically say, okay, just take that quantity of or those collections of values and add them to this thing, whatever they are, and that's just going to perform whatever task it needs to do. There's more that can be done with arrays. we don't have to just make an arrays. How to say this so that makes sense. In this example, we use the data type integer. You can make arrays of any data type. You could make an array of type test. And what it would be is a collection of this class file, whatever it is, this class object. It would be an array, a collection of those objects, whatever they were. That's really a bad example because this class is just being used for testing purposes, so there's nothing really there. That's really it. Spend time with this video, watch it a bunch of times, and really get comfortable with this idea of arrays. They're a very powerful tool that you'll use. Now, we went over this idea of a single dimensional array. Well, we can actually make arrays of up to many different dimensions. We can have two-dimensional arrays, and the indicator for that would be two sets of bricks, two sets of blocks. And what this does, notice we need to get rid of these because it's now referring to one-dimensional arrays. It's missing data. What this is going to do is create a two-dimensional array, kind of like what we have here. It's going to have a row, and it's going to have a column. I don't know why that cracks me up for some reason. And how this works is you have these brackets, and this is how you refer to those brackets. So let's say we took the name of our array, well, we'll use this line of code here. Get rid of that. We took the name of our array, and let's just say it equaled 5. So at location 0, 1, where is that? How would we find that? Well, location 0 is referring to here. Location 0, 0 is here. So location 0, 1 is here. It's this box. So if we wanted to get to, well, any of these cats, we started with this one, it'd be 0 for the column, and then 1, 2. So 0, 2 would be this one. If we wanted to get to this one, it'd be 0, 1, 0, 1, 2. So it'd be location 2, 0, 1, 2, 3. So it would be location 2, 3 would be pointing here. And that's how two-dimensional arrays work. That's the only difference between a one-dimensional array. A one-dimensional array is just one row. Two-dimensionals is columns and rows. The number in this, when you're giving it a size, specifies how many rows and how many columns. So if we looked at here as a perfect example of a two-dimensional array, we have an 8 by 8 grid. And that 8 by 8 grid has to do with an 8 by 8 array. So if we wanted to find this location, well, we would count down 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 and 0, 1, 2, 3, either here or here, 4 or 5. And it'd be 4, 3. Yeah, 4 and then 0, 1, 2, 3 would be here, and 0, 4, or 4, 4 would be here. And that's essentially how you get to these different elements in the array. By just specifying the number, it's good to have a visual, maybe draw it on a piece of paper if you're dealing with a two-dimensional array, so you can know specifically where and what location you're going to be doing calculations on. And that's it. We could go into a three-dimensional array, which essentially would be a cube. Which 0, 0, 0 would be this one. So 0, 0, 0, 1. I'm not going to get into it. It starts to get confusing when you add more dimensions to your array. But that's how you would find it. So that's all there is to say on arrays. Play with them, get used to them, get comfortable with them, traverse them. A short little tip, if you want to know how long an array is, if we had a one-dimensional array here, this is just a little bonus, you could do the name of the array dot length, and this is gonna bring back or return a value, this value. Nothing else really needs to be said. That's just a side thought. You'll see that, you'll use that in other things, but that's really all there is to be said on arrays. So have fun, play with them, see what they are about.